All right. Says that we're live now. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm going to wait a second here to make sure that my audio is coming in, and then we will. Here we go. It's all good. Welcome to the show, folks. We do a lot of discussions here, discussing the foods and the importance of foods. As you know, we are what we eat. So, one of the big topics that I've covered a few times before, but it's always worth covering again, especially how prevalent it is within our society, is sweetness and foods, sugars and foods, whether they be high fructose corn sugar, regular table sugar, brown sugar, and of course, all the new types of sugars that synthetic type sugars, xylitol, sorbitol, aspartame, all these names that you may or may not be familiar with, NutraSweet, things like that. And what I wanted to start off talking about here in the beginning is just this whole push that has happened within our society over the past, certainly past 100 years, where they've been pushing humanity and programming us from a very early age into being addicted to sweets. I don't think any of us are immune to what has happened. And this is very different than previous, our ancestors, our great ancestors that have long ago passed away. They did not have anywhere near the level of sweetness in their diet. And if we think about it, it starts with baby foods, right? The sweetness from, if it was just a newborn baby, where they would get their sugars from would be from a mother's breast milk, the lactose, right, in the breast milk. So that would be an important sugar that would be part of, developing your body, your bones, your brain, everything. But what we have done over the past 100 or so years is we have made almost everything incredibly, and I have nothing to do with this, neither does my guest Camille. But the big corporations, the big food corporations, the big sugar industry has programmed the masses into being addicted to sweets. And everywhere we go, it is inescapable. The advertisements for sugars and sugar drinks and sugar candy bars and everything that has sugar in it is everywhere. It's all in your face. And we are facing massive epidemics of cancer that is spiking through the roofs. Diabetes, especially amongst children, is skyrocketing. Not to mention many other things that are affecting people's health. Obesity, obviously. I think everybody just, all you have to do is walk around in any North American sort of small town even, and you will see the effects of sugar, really, because it is the number one culprit. And I know this myself, as I have I've always tried to balance my sugar. I think when I was a kid, I was like most kids, where my parents didn't know, right? And you know how parents are, they just want you to eat, right? So, my mom used to put sugar in peanut butter, which I hated, by the way. I don't know why she did that. But I mean, I guess she thought we would eat it more if there was sugar in it. And this was just an easy sort of thing for parents to do to get kids to eat something, because kids don't want to eat their broccoli. They don't want to eat their greens. They don't want to eat the potatoes. They want to eat something with sugar on it. They'll eat French fries if you put the ketchup and stuff like that. So as a kid growing up, I had probably, I was thin and fit and, always exercising and outside and doing things. So I had that going for me, but I did have quite a bit of sugar. I wasn't like a sugar addict, and I wasn't addicted to candy or anything like that, but I liked it, sort of thing. When I got into university, I started to really try to eliminate as much of the sugar that I take into my body. And I have for a very long time now really balanced sugar, so that I don't have huge spikes of sugar rushes, insulin rushes, sort of thing, coming into my system. And I think it's very important for people to realize how dangerous sugar consumption is and how addictive it is and how it makes you crave more, and that things like high fructose corn sugar are actually designed to make you crave more sugar, more sweets, more food, and leave you feeling not full. Whereas, and also another thing to mention, I'm going to talk about a lot of these things, but juicers, for instance, which has become a big rage over the past couple decades, where people are taking fruits and vegetables and squashing them and just extracting the juice. This is another method of just, taking the fiber, taking the nutrients out of the food and just extracting the sugar. So it's not a healthy alternative to, switch to juicing, for instance. A lot of people think it is, and it's not. You're just, taking in more and more sugar. You're actually extracting. So if you are eating fruits and vegetables, you should try to eat them whole, and try to eat organic if you can as well. But with that all being said, I want to bring in my guest here. Camille, please stop the ride. Thank you so much for coming in today. I really look forward to discussing this with you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me back on, Jeff.
My pleasure. So what do you have anything you want to say starting off with your experience with sugar, yourself personally? Have you do you balance your sugar? Are you very conscious of it? Do you avoid adding sugar to anything, or how do you go about your way of life?
Oh, yeah. Long ago, I definitely really liked sugar a lot. Now I try to stick to tree sugar and bee sugar. I like honey and I like maple syrup a lot. So not that I use them in large quantities, but when I cook or anything. And coconut sugar, I've used coconut sugar too, but it's like I've weaned off. I used to put a little bit of maple syrup in my coffee and now I don't. And so, yeah, I definitely gotta watch the sugar. They say it's as addictive as drugs, right? So
Even more addictive.
yeah.
They're saying that lab rats, I've got a story here on lab rats, that they found they're more addicted to sugar than they are to heroin.
Oh my.
It's just nuts though, but it goes to show you, it's like, it's very important for people to understand this. I mean, it's almost silly to say it, but it's all around you, right? Like, you walk in your city center, you're at the bus stop, you're in the mall, you're watching television, you're at the movie theater, you walk into the corner store, you go to the grocery store. It's everywhere, and it's almost always the first thing, right?
Oh
It's like
yeah.
a wall of sugar. You walk into a corner, it's like a wall of sugar is right there, and advertisements everywhere. And what's crazy about this is people need to think about this. I say the same thing about alcohol too, because I don't think alcohol. I think alcohol is ubiquitous and it's everywhere and it's advertised, and you see billboards and rock concerts and sporting events and everything. Bud this, Miller, Jameson's, whatever, and it's just everywhere. And it's like, why are we allowing this? Not that we shouldn't have alcohol and not that we shouldn't have sugar or sweets, but as a society, what are we doing to our people when we are constantly suggesting, pounding it into people's craniums that you need to have sugar, right?
And it's been so normalized. You see these children that are eating like sugar cereal for breakfast, and then their teachers give them candies for prizes in class, and then they're eating all their Halloween candy at once or whatever. And people wonder why their children are misbehaving and are crazy. And they're filling them with all of this stuff, not to mention the colors and the flavors that are in there, but the sugar alone, it's just, but it's so normalized, it's, yeah.
Yeah. So up on the screen here, can you see this?
I can, yes.
Okay, good. What does sugar do to your body and brain?
Screws it all up. No, I'm just kidding.
It does.
Yeah.
It literally does. There's a lot of studies coming forth with this, and it's very troubling. Now, there's some good work, there's some good publications, there's some good studies that are done. The problem with doing studies, at least this is what a lot of the cop-outs with the universities that have been looking into these things and trying to examine them, is it's difficult to come out and fully make the full connection between, say, sugar consumption and cancer, because there are other factors that come in.
Oh yeah,
And
we're such a science experiment. There's so much going on.
yeah, we're guinea pigs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but more and more, the connection between sugar and cancer is almost absolutely a major yes. There's no doubt about it, and it's probably the major cause of cancer amongst people, amongst other things. And again, we mentioned diabetes and
Heart disease.
heart disease. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just obesity, of course, which is terrible for people.
Ugh.
And they're saying things like the average American consumes like 90 kilograms.
It's amazing. I see those reports and I'm like, no. Well, I'm not average, I guess, but holy smokes.
Wow.
Well, I've talked to people and they're like, I only have 1 or 2 sodas a day. You know, it's like, whoa.
If I had 1 or 2 sodas a day, I'd put on 10 pounds a month. I would.
Yeah.
I would. I know that, say, like, I get the little sodas now and again, usually when it's, like, I haven't had one in like almost a month, but
yeah, you mentioned that for pick-me-ups. You should try ginseng. Have you ever tried ginseng?
Yeah, I mean, I should just never get these things, but I know that in small quantities, they're not going to kill you, sort of thing.
We don't know that, Jeff. We don't know anything.
Yeah, but anyways, that's my kind of philosophy with it. But the thing is that soft drinks are crazy. I mean, it's crazy. I remember, okay, I gotta tell this story. I've told it before probably, but it's just a funny story. I was on a cruise ship with my girlfriend, and this is maybe about 15 years ago or so, in the Caribbean. And we were launching from Miami, and there's a bunch of Americans there, and I was in the sort of registration line on the cruise ship, and I was a really friendly American and a largely obese guy, probably about 250, close to 300 pounds next to me. And he was talking about what a great deal it was for him to get a whole family unlimited for a week soft drinks. And that's what he was in line for. He was getting the soft drink cards for him and his 3 kids, his wife and his 3 kids. Now, his wife was even larger than he was, probably around 400 pounds, and the kids were all obese. And he was saying they drink 40 2-liter bottles of soft drinks a week. 40.
Holy cow. Wow.
So he was doing the math with me, saying, this is how much it costs a week for me to feed my family these soft drinks. And this is how much I had to pay, like 15 or 20 bucks or something for the whole family, for a week. So, and I was just gobsmacked. I was just like, this is, you look around. Now, if you look around and you see all these obese people, it's almost certain that it's soft drinks that are the number one cause.
I would bet, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And it's something that has been so normalized. I mean, fast food is terrible for you. It's awful. And again, I have that philosophy. Now and again, it's not going to kill you. I think you're better off you never have it. But I think that, like I often say this, when do you have cotton candy? Well, it's when you go to the fair, right? How often does the circus come to town? Once a year, sort of thing. That's okay. Have cotton candy then, sort of thing. But don't buy a cotton candy home or machine for your home, because it's not good for you. It's terrible for you, sort of thing. So that's my philosophy with these things. Is now and again, it would be okay. It might even be acceptable, but it has become so mainstream in our culture. It has become, and these corporations like Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, the major sugar corporations, and I say sugar corporations, not technically saying the sugar cartel that has a lot of power over American politics, and there's like 5 corporations, and they're all billionaires, and
they're all together. They're all together. These things that are destroying us.
Yeah, and interesting about the sugar cartel, just for a second, I'm not going to dig into that any further, but the sugar cartel, they have controlled the prices because they impose sugar duties on other countries that are importing sugar into the United States because of the sugar cartel. And this goes back to the Bush family, of course. And this led to a lot of the sugar corporations coming up to Rainbow Unicorn Land. So, like an example I could give here in Montreal is Lifesavers, the sugar candies, right? That are with the
Hmm.
hole in the center, sort of thing. They actually moved their production up here to Montreal to
It's a
save.
rainbow food, isn't it?
Yeah, it
It's
is.
perfect.
I wonder how much of the rainbow connection could be connected to the foods as well, like the hormones and reproductive system, how much havoc these sugars might be wreaking or inflicting amongst the youth, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's many different things. Go ahead.
Isn't Big Sugar one of those things that Smedley Butler was quoted? Like he conquered somewhere for Big Sugar. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts, eh? So
It's
here,
crazy.
Here we got in a healthy diet, the production of glucose tells your brain to produce insulin, which helps keep your body regulate sugar and also interacts with other hormones, as we just mentioned, to help you feel satiated. Studies have connected excess sugar and fat consumption to reduce performance in parts of the brain that deal with memory. So, right away, it's affecting your brain,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And it's affecting your memory. Now think about it. What's happening to so many people, especially elderly people?
Hmm.
Dementia, Alzheimer's, right? All brain degenerate diseases.
They say we are a chemical cascade. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
flood us with, I mean, and geez, sugar that comes from sugar cane and is probably super processed. That's what we're talking about there. And
Yeah.
this is terrible. And then the synthetic biology aspect of it, nightmare, is like, oh my gosh, it's only going to get worse. How
Yeah.
this it's just crazy. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and I know that I've heard that there's ways that you can eat sugar that won't throw your body out of whack. Like if you eat, I think it's like nuts and cheese, or some people might not like that. But if you eat other things and then eat sugar, like your body's prepared. I'm not an expert or anything, but I know I've heard of that. Like you can
Yeah, I
prepare
think
yourself for
it's
some, not a lot.
exactly because your body is used to processing a certain amount of sugar, right? And
Hmm.
and it's just not pure sugar coming in, right? Which is what a lot of the foods that people are eating these days. It's an attack. And it all has to go through your liver.
Oh,
So
we
then
need to be nicer to our filters.
liver
So
disease. I
bad.
mean,
Yeah.
I mean, the liver is one of the major ailments that people suffer from. I mean, all kinds of cancer. It's again and again dealing with this. I mean, people are we're not like people aren't being balanced, and and again, it's just look at all the different things. We'll just go through this little list here of all the different things that just, and again, we're not even getting into, we'll get into this in a little bit here with Camille dealing with the synthetic sugars that are coming out that everybody should be aware of. But yeah, just the regular sugar cane sort of thing. Too much sugar starts to create insulin resistance, which causes people to crave more food, especially sugar. May, this must, that's what I'll say, contribute to diabetes. So, like we said
Yeah.
before, and I've seen this before, where, like, I have a friend who's obese. I have a few friends that are obese, but I have one that was over and he ate a whole box of cookies and he ate
Oh,
it was like a whole thing of May West. And he was like, I can't believe it. I'm even hungrier now than I was before.
oh my.
Like we just ate six of those massive cakes. And that's an example of what this does. This probably more pertaining to high fructose corn sugar, but again, because like high fructose corn sugar, which is the HFCS, right? That they keep changing the name in Canada's glucose fructose. Um, and the United States, they've changed it from high fructose corn sugar to corn sugar. I don't know what it is now. Maybe they've gone back because they keep soiling the brand and people keep exposing it. But yeah, the high fructose corn sugar, which is found in most of your products and even in your breads, like a lot of people don't think about that. Like you get a McDonald's, for instance, you probably are aware that the ketchup has sugar in it, but maybe you don't even think that the buns are actually loaded with sugar. Right? You
Oh,
don't
sure.
realize these things.
Got to keep you coming back.
Yeah. The amount of sugar naturally found in a healthy diet, frequently from fruits and vegetables, can provide some of the energy needed to get through the day. Okay, we know that. Excessive sugar consumption is associated with a host of diseases, including pancreatic cancer, gout, and kidney disease.
Yep.
Up here, studies have shown worrisome connection between sugar and both high blood pressure and heart disease. Now, I'm again of the mindset, which is only what you call sanity, which is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. When they're trying to introduce fat shaming laws to prevent doctors from talking about the elephant in the room when the obese patient walks in and has all these problems, right? You're not allowed to discuss the weight because the person's feelings are going to get hurt. When it's literally the elephant in the room, right? You're horribly obese. You need to do something about it. High blood pressure, heart disease. I mean, heart disease is the number one killer, right? Period.
Yeah.
For humanity. And it's like, well, why are all these people dying of heart? And then why do you have all these cancer this, cancer that, and cancer ribbons? And again, not to belittle cancer and people that are suffering from cancer, but you don't really hear too much about heart disease. I mean, you do if you're paying attention to it, perhaps, but it's not.
They often blame other things
for
heart disease. Well, they go on and off, right? They tell you this stuff's bad for you, then it's good for you, then it's bad for you. But, yep.
Exactly. Okay, so excess sugar intake is strongly associated with weight gain, even in people who exercise regularly. I don't think we can. I mean, that's common sense again, right? Sugar consumption linked to cavities. Bacteria in your mouth feed on sugar and then produce enamel-destroying acid. And this is interesting, too, because I've discussed it many times before, Mountain Dew mouth.
Yeah.
Which is...
That's gross.
Yeah. You get this highly toxic beverage called Mountain Dew, which people drink, especially in the South America. South America, no, in the Appalachians, for instance, in United States. And it has brominated vegetable oil, which is banned in Europe and Japan and other countries in the world because it's toxic, highly toxic. And yet they use that to prevent the citrus from separating from the rest of the beverage, sort of thing. So, like, I'm sure people know this, when they get like an Orangina or something like that, you have to shake it up because the citrus all sits on the bottom because it separates. Well, the brominated vegetable oil keeps the compounds together, sort of thing. And so they're allowed to use this. It's highly toxic. That's not the only reason. I mean, the sugars and everything else are attacking your enamel and destroying your teeth. But yeah, people in the South were putting in baby bottles. It's just nuts. I mean, it's sad to think about it, right? But like, it's just all around you. The advertisements, they target these demographics. They know this is something that sells well in this region, and people have grown up with it, and it's part of their quote unquote culture, sort of thing. And these things are extremely bad for you. I mean, in every way, shape, and form. You're just way better off drinking a glass of water.
If it's some good water, they're killing us there too.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, still.
But, oh yeah, get a good filter. You mentioned earlier the human milk sugars that for babies and everything, and that's that 2-fucosyllactose. Remember, that's in baby formulas. They make human milk sugars. I mean, to add with all the other sugars that they put in there in that slurry, so they're ready and prepared to eat.
So with the babies too, it's like from the earliest, from like almost from birth, you're getting them addicted to sweets.
Yep.
Did you ever see I don't know, I remember seeing this where it was like another, I don't know, the Appalachian or mother or something, who was given her baby, instead of giving her baby milk in a bottle, she was given it chocolate milk.
Oh man. Well, I hear that's like all the health rage right now. I can't tell you how many people have mentioned chocolate milk to me, and it is convenient. McDonald's just is reformulating their chocolate milk. They're changing it down, reduce sugar too. But yeah, chocolate milk is huge.
Yes.
Even for
It's
babies. Oh
it's
my word.
it's sold as an energy drink
Yeah,
now.
after like working out or something. They
And
say that.
energy drinks are some of the worst culprits when it comes to the sweetnesses, right? Like
Seriously.
all the sugars that they put in them are, I mean, it's out of this world, and most of that you don't need at all. And most people that drink, I mean, I see people walking down the street. Why are you drinking a sports drink? I mean, Gatorade was originally designed, I believe, for college football or something. It was some experiment where they were trying to get the electrolytes back into the athletes so that they could perform better. And then they just like, next thing you know, it's like, the whole ritual of dumping the Gatorade bottle on the or the bucket on the coach sort of thing took off, and next thing you know, Gatorade is everywhere. And then now it's Red Bull and Rockstar and Monster, these energy drinks, and kids are drinking them, and it's like, you shouldn't drink those, period,
No.
like, ever. I think I've maybe taken a sip out of a Red Bull, and I was like, no. I could feel the rush, the caffeine and everything else that's in these things. They're highly toxic, and
It's
yet
so addictive.
there's, yeah.
Yeah.
And important to point out too is like the most popular and influential YouTubers, including the gamers, like
Ooh, Jeffree Star pushes those. Yeah.
Jeffree Star, that wretched creature from the deepest pits of hell. And another one is Ninja, who is like the top Fortnite player, which is another form of addiction for children. And he obviously has some major deal with Red Bull, because when he's playing his games, he has right next to him, always in view, his custom Red Bull fridge stocked to the brim with Red Bull. Yeah. And it's like, little kids are watching this thinking it's the most normal thing in the world to like be gaming all day and drinking this type of toxicity, right? This horribly chemically laden sort of concoction, which is ostensibly there to pick you up, give you wings, sort of thing.
Yeah. I
wonder
picture
if it
that's
might
an
be giving
angel
you.
because you're dead.
Yeah, I wonder what kind of wings.
Oh,
Baphomet wings, maybe. Maybe it's gonna give you horns.
oh.
Anyway, so the last one here was fructose is metabolized by the liver. That's why too much sugar can inflame your liver and is associated with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So this is, it's a helpful little guide there just to show you some of the basic things that I think most people, I mean, maybe most people don't know, but you should know these things. I mean, this is why I do this show with you, Camille, because there's very few things that are more important than, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, what could be more important? The air you breathe, maybe more important than the food that you take in, the water you drink. I mean, it's half
The
a
air
dozen
you
more.
breathe is harder to control.
Yeah.
You can avoid going to things, I guess, that are full of toxic stuff. I think of shopping places that they pump fragrance and everything into the room, but still, definitely want to avoid that stuff. But the food, it may seem drastic. I'm telling you, I don't eat any of this stuff. I used to, but I don't anymore. And it seriously is, you just, it's doable, but you have to start. You have to start. And I'm so glad. And maple syrup and honey, of course, honey, it's tough because so many people treat their bees with all sorts of stuff. But if you get to know your bee farmer, I happen to have one in the family, but it's
that's great.
It's just the way to go, and it's delicious.
Again, too, that's what we should all be striving for is knowing exactly where your food comes from and having that in direct connection to the farmer.
Yeah, as few steps in between as possible, whether they're production steps or delivery. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like you too. I mean, like I use honey and I use largely maple syrup. I mean, of course.
Well,
Quebec.
You're Canadian, right? Yeah. That's the law there, right?
The land of maple syrup here. Yeah. So, and yeah, we get it cheaper than anywhere else in the world. So, I stock up on it and I use it. And it's great. But the things too, it's like when I for instance, I have a tea here. I'll make maybe a 16-ounce tea, and I'll put probably about half a tablespoon of maple syrup with the herbal tea that I have. which is you taste it, and it certainly makes a difference. I don't enjoy herbal tea without the sweetener because I mean most of them are kind of bland that way. But it's not. It's like a pleasant, mild sweetness. It's not like, oh my god, this is sweet. Now, I tell the story too, where I once was at a sporting event. My friend bought me some mocha frappuccino sort of thing from Starbucks. He's like, "Yeah, take this, drink it," And I swear, it was, it had like, the thing was huge. It was like 20 ounces or so, and it had whipping cream and chocolate sprinkles, and I mean,
Oh
it was
yeah.
just like it was out of this world. I probably drank like a tenth of it, and I felt my heart racing.
And those are like your coffee can't touch you. I used to drink that stuff long ago, and coffee couldn't touch me, regular coffee, after having things like that. It's like it's stronger, makes you
Well,
really
yeah,
get the rush from that.
you get not just the caffeine, but you get the
Yeah.
massive sugar rush. In fact, these things, I have it here. Where do I have it here? Somewhere. The amount of sugar that's in one of these beverages here. Actually, I can't find it at the moment. Somewhere. I got a million tabs here. The amount of sugar that's in. Oh, yeah, Starbucks drink. Check this out. So, do you know how much sugar is in the Starbucks drink? Can you see this, by the way?
It's small, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, I'm going to try to make it bigger here. Do you know how much sugar is in your Starbucks drink? Venti extra large with chocolate mocha with whipped cream has 73.8 grams of sugar.
Wow.
That's 18 teaspoons. 18.
That's just crazy. Oh,
That
man.
is just nuts. I mean, that is insane. That is terrible for you. I mean, and then you wonder why people have like 70 or 80 kilograms of sugar a year.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
It's like, well, you have one of these every day. You have one of those. Well, I don't know. You probably don't have Tim Hortons, but we have the.
Oh, we have it.
Oh, okay, you
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's Canadian, but it's like frappuccino, or I don't know what they are. They're like a frosty cappuccino sort of thing, and they're all the rage, and they have been for so long. But they're so full of sugar, and they're really good. I mean, they taste great, right? But that's the whole thing. It's like, these things are, again, if you had one, a month or something like that, and you had like you exercise regularly and all that, probably wouldn't have minimal effect on you. But
I bet you could make something just as yummy at home with totally simple ingredients. And that's the shift we need to make, is we got to go back to making our own things. And you can make those things, actually, because I've made similar. Not with whipped cream, but or
also
sprinkles.
just training your palate not to
Yeah.
crave, because like this is why I don't like, I like sweets, and I love my ice cream, but I usually go for vanilla because I like to mix it with things, especially fruit. But I don't like, I don't drink orange juice. I only have beer on the weekend, sort of thing. And like, just having sweets is nothing. Like, I don't want it. I want to have one little sweet meal a day, sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's what I allow myself, and I keep myself balanced, and I exercise every day. But most people, it's like, every meal they're gonna have like a can of Coke or something, or one of these frappuccinos from Starbucks or something, and they're gonna think, well, that's perfectly acceptable.
Well,
And
and
then,
people use things like meal kits out of boxes and stuff to help, like, side dishes with their meal. And how much is in that too? They don't know what's
well,
coming in
yeah,
these
too.
things.
There's a movie called what's it called? It's Australian. I was checking it out the other night. It's called The Sugar Film. It's actually really good. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
And it's kind of like the Morgan Spurlock film, if you remember
Yeah, Supersize Me.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very similar, where it's an Australian guy, and he's kind of a health food guy, and he decides, you know what, I'm gonna just I'm gonna try an experiment, right, and film it, sort of, and have a bunch, just like in the Super Size Me, where they have like a bunch of health experts that monitor his health. And I'm just gonna I'm gonna switch the diet that I'm on now, and I'm gonna take up a low fat diet that is, and I'm gonna have the exact same amount of calories, except I'm gonna eat the low fat meals that are on the shelves, right? The
Ew.
so-called healthy things, right? of the
Yeah.
name brands. And again, the same thing happens. Like he puts on like 20 pounds in a month, and like his liver's going crazy, and he's feeling terrible, and he's like, it's just, and it's not like he didn't change the amount of calories. In fact, he tried to keep it exactly strict to keep the exact same amount of calories, but it's the type of foods that he was consuming. Whereas before he was eating mostly organic fruits and vegetables and meats and some carbohydrates, some breads and stuff like that. Just a regular sort of balanced diet. He switched to, I'll take the meal supplements and, that have all the calories and they tell you low fat and all that stuff. And yeah, the results were disastrous. In fact, it's the exact same thing as Super Size Me, where it was like, well, if you keep on this, you're going to die, basically.
Well, it's so risky to do things because they are low calorie or low fat or any of this, because like the thing that I mentioned to you just before we got on the show, this like a new version of high fructose corn syrup, they know that people are looking for calories and sugar. In fact, that's the title of the one article I've got here, that they're aware that's what you're looking for on the nutrition facts. So they're changing where things go. They're like, oh, well, this isn't going to be considered a sugar. This is going to be under carbohydrates.
Yeah.
They don't have to. So it's just such a trick.
Yeah.
We can't go by that stuff.
And like the low fat kind of craze too is totally disingenuous as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's opposite of Whole Foods, right? They're stripping things out and doing who knows what else.
And that's why I mentioned the juicers before, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to juice and it's going to be better. And it's like, no, it's actually much worse. You should consume the actual fruit. Like, don't juice apples, eat apples.
And if you're going to, maybe have a small glass. Have a little cup,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's...
Or dilute it with water. Like, take... Because like I find, like I don't buy it, but sometimes I would in the past. I would get like pomegranate juice, which is... It's like ridiculously sweet. It's so, and it's like, how can anybody drink that straight? But you could put like, 10 or 20% of that and the rest water. And
And when I'm saying a small amount, I'm saying of like fresh juiced stuff that's not been, because when they pasteurize it, doesn't it make it even sugarier or more sugar?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
So we got this article here. Let's take a brief look at it. The rats who preferred sugar over cocaine.
The rats. Yep.
So they found that a fascinating study, most of the critters studied, a whopping 94% wanted sugar or saccharin, not cocaine. So these are, they addicted them to both, basically. And so this is just an example of how addictive sugar is. People need to realize this. And all these corporations, when we think about, they put out the movie there with Russell Crowe about The Insider, right? About the tobacco industry.
I didn't see it.
Okay. The basic story though, the big tobacco industry was injecting nicotine into their products, like raising the level of nicotine so that they could addict people to their products, basically.
Lovely.
Yeah. And nobody has to tell you. I mean, you can just smoke a cigarette, it's terrible for you. I mean, you got to be a retard if you don't realize smoking cigarettes is awful for you. But that's the reality, is that for decades, the tobacco industry was purposely trying to addict people to their products, and then they were held liable for it. I think it's very clear that the fast food and the junk food industry, and just the children's cereal, which is just abominable, the children's cereals, have been doing exactly the same thing. And I would say it's just as toxic, if not more toxic, than cigarettes. I mean, it's right up there with cigarettes and alcohol when you think of how deadly this sugar addiction is and what it leads to. I mean, look at the rates of child obesity, for instance, right? And diabetes amongst children. And they're normalizing this stuff too. I mean, it's ludicrous where they're like, again, an ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure, right? It's like, well, why are we normalizing children's diabetes?
Seriously.
It's like, why don't we just stop it and inform, and like again, I'm not someone that's for government intervention when it comes to people's choices in lives, but the problem is that we allow these massive corporations, the same corporations that are putting out the toxic sort of New World Order programming. So you got like Kellogg's, for instance, putting out the Pride cereals and stuff like that. Right. And you see how, I mean, to me, it's evil, right? Like they want your kids addicted. They want to get them as young as possible. Then, and they use the cartoon characters. This is a well-known formula, right? Again, our whole sort of quote unquote culture is fabricated by these corporations, whether it be Disney, whether it be Coca-Cola, McDonald's, right? Burger King, like you have all these characters, Ronald McDonald, you have the Lucky Charms leprechaun, whatever his name is, right? Tricks the rabbit, and people grow up with these things. There's cartoons and comic books and video games that accompany them and keep them in this realm. And then as they get older, they still consume the same things that they had when they were a kid, thinking somehow these things are nutritious. So the labeling on these cereals, for instance, is highly disingenuous. It's like, 12 nutrients or
Yeah.
vitamins, it's like
That your body can't eat and absorb.
yeah, exactly. It's like they can. It's like saying 100% pure beef, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they won the lawsuits, and they managed to structure the language to fool the people, and we allow them to get away with it, sort of thing, because of the power that they have. The lobbies of these massive corporations are extremely powerful. We mentioned the sugar lobby before, the 5 major corporations, sugar corporations in the United States that were largely aided by the Bush administration, the George Herbert Walker Bush, if I'm not mistaken. But this is just another example here. These things are so deadly. Here's the Harvard Health publishing here, where they're eating too much sugar. Added sugar increases. Eating too much sugar, added sugar, increases the risk of dying with heart disease. I think that's a no-brainer, but this is a study that they published here that they did, which shows that they should say that women should consume less than 100 calories of added sugar a day. So added sugar is anytime, it includes honey and maple syrup, by the way.
Oh, sure.
Right? Like when you add sugar to something. Now, that doesn't include what's in your box of cereal. That's all added sugar, right? I mean, it does include that. So like added sugar would be like eating an apple is not added sugar. Eating a banana is not added sugar, right? Because you're getting the fiber, you're getting the other nutrients.
Maybe those cotton candy organic grapes, though. We got to
Are they good?
I have no idea. I've heard great things.
Yeah. I know you mentioned them before.
Yeah.
But yeah, they say women should consume less than 100 calories of added sugar per day, about 6 teaspoons, and men should consume less than 19. That to me still seems like really high. It's like 9 teaspoons of added sugar. You should probably try to just eliminate as much as possible. And then if you're going to add sugar, I would make sure it's something like honey or maple syrup. And again, like Camille says, like, know your beekeeper if you're going to buy your honey, because not all honey's the same. In fact, China has pretty much been busted making sort of synthetic honey or something, right?
Well, then they used to like collect it in things that leached lead into the honey and all kinds of things too. I don't know. Don't buy your food from China. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah. Well, you go to Walmart, you're pretty much getting.
Don't buy your food from Walmart either. No, I'm just kidding. I know that's hard. They're sometimes the only food store, but if we want to call it food.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, and again, people like if you're looking at the label to determine whether something's healthy, you're not seeing the forest for the trees.
Oh yeah. And you got to wonder, I mean, they say the Industrial Revolution like changed everything of what we're eating. We're only eating so many of the plants and things that are grown on this planet. And it's interesting how the effects that they have on us and how bad these chosen ones can be for us. But yeah. Like I have a list of 166 anti-fertility medicinal plants, it says, but like dates are on here. It links to a study, but I haven't read the study, but it says that dates, I don't know what quantity, have an anti-ovulatory activity.
Wow.
And pomegranates. Yeah, pomegranates are on there too. Anti-implantation activity. So
Very interesting.
it's crazy, and lots of seasonings and whatnot.
Yeah. I think though that
Shocking.
yeah, I mean, like if you have a basic sort of philosophy with your diet, or you just like
Moderation.
moderation
Yeah.
for one, seasonal, as we've mentioned
Yeah.
many times before. You know, what's in season. That's again, be as close to your food as possible. Like cut out the middleman as much as possible, and eat whole foods. And again, Whole Foods is. I hate that corporation that's called Whole Foods because every time I say eat Whole Foods, people say, you know, that corporation Whole Foods is not exactly healthy. It's like, no, I'm
Yeah.
not talking about.
You're not telling them to eat the grocery store, guys.
No,
You're talking about food.
Yeah, I'm saying like eat an apple, eat a pear, eat a date or raisins or something that hasn't been sugarized and
Yeah.
processed and all this stuff, because nothing's going to be perfect, and our bodies are quite remarkable in the way that they're able to. I mean, it is almost a miracle that most people survive as long as they do, getting to the size that a lot of these people get to. Like I'm amazed if somebody's 500 pounds and they make it to 50. It's like, it's like your body's tough as you gotta almost give it some credit. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, most of these people could be living much, much longer if they just completely change their diet. And again, when it comes to the diet, when it comes to these things, the difficulty is that you become addicted, and your body and your brain craves these things. It's not as simple as just you have too much sugar in your diet. It's an actual physical and mental addiction that
and
is
they have studied us so much. They know what this is doing, and they know that we want it. It ties in perfectly, like how their storyline is like, oh, it's time to reduce sugar and time to go to this other stuff, right at the same time that they're pushing their longevity thing. We're going to make people live longer. Yeah, we're going to. Look at how that works.
Yeah, which people?
Yeah. Those that survive the experiment, maybe.
Yeah, those that aren't eating this food, I'll tell you that. So here we've got a story. Snacks for babies contain unacceptable amounts of sugar. Public Health England finds some healthy snacks contain as much sugar as confectionery. So Public Health England has sharply criticized baby food and infant food manufacturers for loading their products with unacceptably large amounts of sugar and wrongly promoting them as good health. Again, mislabeling. I mean, these corporations should be held completely liable. Sugar makes up almost half the content of the fruit and vegetable-based snacks for babies and infants. And there's a methodology to it too. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. I'm trying to think of the term for it. I think it starts with a D, but it's like there's a point, right? And they mentioned this in the movie that I mentioned before, the Australian film, that there's a guy in America who kind of developed this point where all foods, so like when it comes to like what are our foods, when we go to the grocery store, the bulk of the foods have two things in them.
Okay.
Right. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like there's two major factors at play when it comes to sensations. There's sweet and salty.
Oh yeah.
So and there's like a tipping point where it gets too much. So what they discovered back like 40, 50 years ago was that tipping point where it was like you can't make things too sweet and you can't make things too salty, because then all of a sudden people have a reaction to it. So you have to reach that perfect point that balances out sort of, so that people don't feel like they're getting too much sugar or too much salt, sort of thing. So they've purposely, strategically designed all these food products to have that perfect equilibrium, so that everybody that bites into them doesn't have that reaction, right? That's why so much of your foods are very similar. It's like you have a Coca-Cola, you have a root beer, you have a Dr. Pepper. It's the same thing, basically. It's just flavors, but it's the same amount of sugar.
Yeah.
The same with your breads, the same with your cookies, the same with your soups. Like all these things have that equilibrium point that they understand, that they studied for decades, and they determined this is the point where you want to just balance it out, sort of thing. You don't want to make it more sweet than that. So that's another method of keeping people addicted to these foods is to do it just right. And as you said before, they know us inside out. They know everything about us, and they know exactly how to make us addicted to their products.
Oh yeah, and if they've got us tailored to be looking for this sweet and this salty, maybe people, I know that they make the bitter blockers, and people maybe aren't eating bitter greens and things like that in their diet, but those are important for digestion. So like by not focusing and not having things in our diet,
Yeah, and
we're
having that alkali sort of balance that you have in your system, right? Without, keeping the balance so that your system isn't out of whack, sort of thing. And then that's where so many of the complications come in.
oh yeah, like the clogs that can happen on your filters, like your pancreas and everything. If things don't get to like if they don't get triggered, there's just so much that can happen. And magically they've got this healthcare system that can help us. So
Yeah,
how handy.
again, right? It's like how many I mean, here in Canada, it's publicly funded, right? We have a Medicare system, but how many billions of dollars are going into our healthcare system to help people with diseases and complications that are entirely preventable?
Oh yeah.
But
I'm for emergency medicine, but I don't think the rest of this stuff is anything to
yeah,
do with health
there should
at
be
all.
a
Yeah.
certain amount of responsibility. Like if you're obese, for instance, well, that's your fault, right? I mean, it is ultimately, and again, is it, like I'll ask you, Camille, you think about it, a lot of these kids, I mean, if they're growing up and their parents are giving them Mountain Dew and baby bottles, I mean, is it really their fault?
Well, yeah, they're getting turned into drug addicts, and those parents might trust the government, like, oh, they wouldn't let us
Yeah,
have something that was bad for us. Oh,
wouldn't want to
no,
kill us.
they wouldn't want to do that at all. Yeah, no, it's so tricky in that the way they call things and how things are classified. No, the
Yeah.
government's here to help.
And look at this too. This is another example here. What kind of what I mentioned before. I just saw this article on the side here. Sweet makers using cartoon characters to appeal to children.
Oh yeah, it makes me think of those girls on YouTube that are like, here's another way that you can hide candy to get it into school with you. Like all the
Oh yeah. Well, I
yeah.
was going to mention this creature before, who I couldn't hate more. Rosanna Pansino here, who is basically a YouTube employee, and she has a show called Nerdy Nummies. Can you see this on your screen
Yeah.
here?
Yep.
This is your typical YouTube channel, which everything is sweets, and it's all. This is I show this all the time, but it's always worth repeating because it shows you how it all works. So how do people get addicted to these foods, and how do they keep people coming back to them? Well, it's all connected. It's like your junk food industry, your Pop Tarts, your cereals, your gummy bears are all connected to your Marvel comics and your comic and your cartoon characters and your Lego, and everything is connected. And this is how it all kind of comes together with these characters here. It's like they've got their Peeps and they got their Five Nights with Freddy type cereal, right? Highly toxic, satanic type video games, and horribly synthetic foods. And again, they're pushing all the LGBT, PQNS, WXYZ, as well, as you see with Growy Josefa and these characters calling Ballinger. But it's all horribly toxic junk food. And this is the most popular cooking channel on YouTube, without a doubt. I mean, and they're all like this. Like every single one of these types of channels, this is what the average person is watching. These people produce junk food, and they produce the junk food and they make their concoctions, like a lot of the things that this creature allegedly produces but doesn't really produce. This is a perfect example. Unikitty cake. Now, I don't even know what Unikitty is, but
Lego.
look at this. It's Lego.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know how parents think, I only get my kids Disney, He's like, you put your trust in Satan, basically, right? So, I'm going to get my kids Lego, which Lego has taken all the creativity out of their toys. Like Lego is an abomination. When I was a kid, like Lego was just blocks of different sizes, and it was you that made what the Lego was, right? You put all the different colored blocks together and made it into a car or a fort or a tower or whatever it might be, right? But now all the Lego sets are designed on the movies and the cartoons and
Video games.
the video games and all the culture. So this is exactly, I mean, you look at all the rainbow, right? Unicorn horn treats, unicorn, and then there's Mona princess cake, Disney, right? And all the YouTube celebrities that come in that are all basically shills, basically employees of YouTube, including a lot of transgenders that appear on this show. And of course, the rainbow unicorn whole programming that goes into it. But you see, and it mixes all the Marvel with the Star Wars. So this is just a great example. There are gazillions more. There's a channel called Tasty, right? And this is just an example of how, 16.7 million subscribers, and they got little kids. And again, with the COPA thing, you'd think all these channels would be done, right? Because they're going directly after kids. What are they promoting? The worst types of junk foods, right? The worst types of fatty synthetic foods, and they have all the characters like this Hannah Hart character, right? And again, it's the same sort of formula where it's connecting the popular YouTubers with the junk foods, with the the Marvel and the comics and all that. And then BuzzFeed is another example. There's just so many examples of these channels that exist. And isn't that interesting? Where I show the little girl Candy's chefs turn a leprechaun, and you've got a girl here with the rainbow in the background here, of course, which is the attack on children's fertility and programming people into eugenics. And BuzzFeed is another example, as is. There are all these channels that do this. So this is just a way that the programming works and the types of characters that are used. So that then
on those children's channel, like they have like McDonald's logos and all these different, like they put the logos right on the thumbnail, and that's what the whole show is about. It's crazy.
Yeah, and another example, I show this a lot too, but I'll just show it again. Mukbang, for instance. This is YouTube 101. So Susan Wojcicki, who's the CEO of YouTube, wants to promote this type of lifestyle where people eat massive amounts of horrible foods. And, it's always trending, getting millions of views. It is the most popular thing. And you just see it's all the worst foods, right? Wow. And why would anybody watch this? Why would anybody do it? Well, it's all the most popular YouTubers. We mentioned before that creature from the deep pits of hell, Jeffree Star. Well, here he is with another creature from the deep pit, two other creatures, Tana Mongeau and James Charles, who, his sisters, sort of thing. So it's just example of how the programming works to program. Here's an obese person doing it. And then you got characters like this Amber Lynn Reed. Amber Lynn Reed. I don't know if I spelled her name right here. This creature here who, watch me eat, and then, grovels about talking about how she's trying to struggle with her weight. And this person's like 660 something pounds. 666 pounds, maybe.
It's like watching a slow motion suicide.
Yeah, it's like a slow motion train wreck, basically. Yeah. It's just nasty. So, anyways, I didn't want to get too sidetracked there, but I thought that was
important. Before we leave the YouTubers, let me just say, you remember those ghetto vegans in that video that they did on, I think it was even a mukbang with their children, the Impossible Meat versus the Beyond Meat. And you remember how I've heard here in my real life and then online that the Beyond Burger smells like cat food. But when you're cooking it, but their reaction to the Impossible Meat, which started in restaurants, now it's in grocery stores. They're like, it is nasty. It smells so bad. They say worse than the Beyond. So wow. I think that's funny. They got to work on that.
That's it. All right, it's not going down well. But if we Impossible burgers, we'll just see who is pushing this, and you'll probably have all your usual Wired, CNET, Eater. I mean, look at the Eater. Yeah. And again with the McDonald's, and you think about it. Okay, so all these corporations for decades have been addicting people with all the chemicals and all the sugars in their foods, making people obese or killing people essentially by addicting them. I mean, yeah, ultimately it's the person's your control of your own body. You make that decision. But if you're programmed everywhere you turn, if you grow up with it, if your parents are giving it to you, if I mean that's why they designed. I talk about this. Why they designed the McDonald's Playland. It was one of the most brilliant sort of strategies in fast food. The fast food industry. The fast food industry wasn't anything like it is today. Like it used to be, it didn't really exist as an entity. Like people fast, I mean, what was fast? It was greasy spoon, basically, right? It was like going to a diner and getting burgers, basically, in the 1950s, say, for instance, Eisenhower era, right? Where the first types of fast food type joints might have started to emerge in the 60s. The A&W and the McDonald's first came out around then. So there wasn't really a fast food industry that existed. It was just people eating greasy spoon type food, going to diners, getting burgers and fries and stuff like that. The fast food industry then came out in the 1960s, and then they started employing all these marketing sort of tactics to trying to addict people to their foods. And one of the most brilliant things, which is evil beyond belief. So when I say brilliant, equate that to evil, basically, was developing the playlands and marketing the food towards infants. So McDonald's Playland, which I don't have here, but maybe I'll bring it up for an image here. McDonald's Playland or Playground, Playland, Playground, play this, play whatever, right? These are the examples of how the early examples of how they were able to market towards infants and get them as young as possible so that you can keep them for life. So if you can addict them when they're like 2 years old, 3 years old, the McDonald's parties is another example where let's have parties, we'll host the parties, right? I had them as a kid too at McDonald's. And the food is terrible, but the kids like it because it's sweet and salty. It's ultra sweet and salty. And it's almost like the food of McDonald's is designed for children before it's even designed for adults. The whole dipping thing. It's a very childish way to eat, right?
Yeah.
And
so the
Go
little
ahead.
bugs inside of us too, like the candida and stuff, the yeast, that they want this. They want the sugar. So then you're craving this stuff. I mean, and the tiny life inside us has a lot to do with how we run, so they say.
I mean, 24-hour Playland? What?
Because we need that. Gosh.
That just gives you an example. And how unhealthy are these ball things?
Oh, that's one of those YouTube challenges. I stayed 24 hours.
Mr. Beast.
Yeah. Gosh.
But yeah, I mean, these things. This is the McDonald's marketing to its children, marketing to kids, sort of thing is their strategy, right? And this is how they're able to, I mean, the whole Ronald McDonald thing. This is where McDonald's became an empire, not because they made the best burgers, not because they were setting themselves up in the best locations. And it was more the advertising mixed with all the appeal to children, right? Targeting children using the nag factor. You know what the nag factor is, right?
I want a happy
meal. So this was employed. I mean, afternoon cartoons and Saturday morning cartoons for children would target kids with the nag factor, where they would have little kids screaming at their parents to buy them a toy, sort of thing, or to take them to McDonald's. So this is all well known, and to me, it's highly criminal. Like you should never, children should be free of all this stuff. I mean, this goes to show you the strategy being employed by these corporations to get people to, addicted to their foods as young as possible. So
we're totally hooked. They've done this. They've created this situation, which they're good at, and now they're changing everything. And now they're changing it to be a whole new part of the science experiment, like that new corn syrup-like product that I was saying before.
You want to bring that up now?
Yeah, I'm going to send you this link for one of them. And now, before I send it, I saw the name of the creation. I saw the name of it and I laughed because the way I read it. it's pretty funny. It comes under different brand names, but here is one of the links for it. This is the one that's talking about how what they have to label as sugar, and this doesn't have to be labeled as a sugar. The FDA says so. This is going to be a carbohydrate, which sure, that'd be a sugar too. And this is made with synthetic biology the same way. But look, if you scroll down a little, you'll see it right there. I see a clear incremental opportunity for all you lose. I thought that was pretty funny.
What is all you use?
Well, just the way looking at it, all you lose. That's what made me laugh.
All you...
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow.
And this is being used for all kinds of, like, they're trying to reduce the sugar of chocolate is one big thing globally.
God, they actually called it all you lose?
Yep.
Oh my Lord.
I thought it was
These people are evil. I mean,
Yeah.
that come on. That's so obvious what they're doing. That is just
So they say
hell?
this is coming from corn and is being changed via an enzymatic process, which is just like high fructose corn syrup. But and it's using enzymes that come from genetically engineered microbes, but those are just processing aids. Remember, this is all in here, and yeah, it's just crazy because it's not affecting your body in the same way as sugar. Just like, remember that 100% synthetic protein fruit sugar, that protein, the thaumatin. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just like that these don't affect your body that way. So it's okay. Eat up, eat your ice cream. And they're coming under brand names like Dolce Prima, and there's Estrella. You might not know. You might not. If you just glance at your ingredients.
I just can't believe the name. I can't get over it. All you lose. I mean,
I only found this last night, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Oh, so glad you brought it up. I'm gonna. That's just nuts. That is just nuts. But that is showing you right away that they have nothing but contempt for all of us. I mean, they probably deride a lot of pleasure from seeing people and the effects of their foods. I mean, it's funny because I watch a lot of music concerts, right? And so I'll watch concerts from as far back as I can find them on YouTube and other platforms, sort of thing. 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. So even in the 80s, right? You watch the average rock concert, you see there's no fat people in the audience. Now you watch the shows and half the audience is fat and everybody's holding up the cell phone, sort of thing, right? It's like they have nobody can make a mistake about this. When they talk about the obesity epidemic, they have done literally nothing to stop it, right? In fact, if anything, they've allowed it to manifest to the degree it is now, where it's over a third of the population. It's like amongst the children, it's like 20% or something now that give the kids the obesity rate, which is out of this world. When I went to elementary school, there was one fat kid in the entire school. Everybody knew him because he was the fat kid. Right?
Yeah.
It's like somebody, had bad parenting, basically. Right?
But even if somebody is skinny, they should not be eating these things like this.
No.
I don't know what makes people go one way or the other, but this stuff is bad for everybody, definitely.
But also when you think about it, it comes back to the whole thing too about why, we know why they're doing it. This is to all of you out there that are listening to this, train your palate to not crave sweets.
It's tough. I mean, how would be the best way for people to go about that? I mean, I would say go on a fast, just cut everything out. Like they say, elimination diets, but you got to watch because these things are drugs and you're hooked on them. And I know someone personally that had major withdrawal, like sick coming off of their fake Tinker Toy stuff here. You got to watch it, but you got to cut it out. And the sooner the better. I heard somebody say long ago, because we're kind of on a path toward a really dark place unless we can stop it. But would you rather have to come off these things then? Like if things went really south and everything got bad and you had to wean off your drugs because it was a forced thing, that'd be so much harder,
Yeah, well, that's it.
Do it now.
And drugs is a good analogy. Alcohol is another good analogy for this.
Oh yeah,
because it's like, look, alcohol in moderation is fine. I mean, some people like some people never have it and they're better off for it for sure. But if you have it in moderation, it's not going to adversely affect you. But if you have it I can't say that, absolutely, but I'll just say from my experience, if you moderate your alcohol consumption, just like you moderate your sugar consumption, you'll keep a balance in your body, and your body will perform on a circadian rhythm sort of thing, where it's used to every day getting the same levels, right? So that you function optimally and you don't have spikes. So like a lot of the lifestyle that they promote these days and amongst the youth, I mean, when you're young, it's different, especially when you're in your university college years sort of thing, and you're pulling all-nighters and you're going to raves or whatever you might be doing, right? You're gonna, I'm not saying it's ideal or anything like that. It's just that's a time where a lot of people allow, or may, rely on extra coffee, extra caffeine, Red Bulls, things like that. But like when you get past that point, and before that point, when you're a teenager, when you're a kid, when you're developing all your hormones, all your body, you're growing into your body, these things are highly toxic. And if like the whole methodology of developing a sweet palate, which these corporations are focused on, getting people addicted to a level of sweetness that they expect in everything, making it so that kids won't eat foods that are actually good for them because they'll nag the parents, and the parents will just be so spent emotionally, physically, right, from bad nutrition and just working in glass towers and just just the average sort of zombie lifestyle that people are living sort of thing, that they just want the kids to eat the meals, and, so they're just getting what the kid wants. And then again, with the New World Order, the way that the New World Order is programming, targeting the children to be narcissistic and selfie and all that, the parents are probably more than willing to oblige just to keep their kids from mouthing off and wanting them to eat their food. So the parents are giving in, and the parents are, most of the parents are oblivious to the detrimental health effects that these products are having on their kids. And then, again, I mean, it's like ludicrous. I don't know how, like when I see a parent with an obese kid, I just want to, I want to shake the parent. I'm just going to say, how dare you let your kid get like this? But it's not my place to do that.
Yeah.
Like I want to do it because I feel like you're abusing this kid, right? But again, it's not my place to do so.
Well, and a lot of it comes back to the women in the glass towers, right? I mean, because it takes a lot of time to make your food when you're not just opening a package and dumping it out. And we have zero control over what is in that package. They're not even telling you everything that's in that package or what was involved, like the processing aids, the things that they just don't have to list.
Yeah.
And should you be eating that? I mean, it makes me think also, I just linked you to that the article that in the What is Natural video, which everything's natural, people, but the what is natural, this study of organoleptics, how our sensory systems work, they know, and they are testing all of their little natural library of Tinker Toy bits and Lego pieces that they can snap together and make foods that they're going to trick us. They're going to, this, we know people like a heating or a cooling sensation. If you scroll down, remember the biotrans?
Oh, yeah. Look.
Yeah,
wow.
They've got us just nailed. And the everything that's rolling out that I'm seeing in the land of sugar, I mean, it's all the way, it's even to Belgium. What you think of Belgium? I was an exchange student there when I was younger. Yeah. And everywhere it was in Brussels was like diamond stores or chocolate stores.
Yeah.
Well, Cargill's just invested $5 million over there at their Belgium facility to reduce the sugar. The different ways, there's so many different technologies that they're working on for this new sugar. Like in the sugar video that I did, they're coating silica granules with the whatever flavor they want so that you need less of it to stimulate your taste buds. And they make little like puffed up sort of like cages, like a little bucky balls or something come to mind, a little puffed up version of it so that it doesn't have to be, it's hollow sort of thing. So it doesn't have to have as much. And then the the spewed out of the tiny life sort of things, like the thaumatin, all the fruit sugars. They're even saying, you mentioned the xylitol.
Mhm.
And that, I mean, that it was coming from birch trees, I think, which I don't know. I mean, they say it's really toxic to dogs. What's it doing to us? I don't know. I know we're different than dogs, but that stuff that's like, it's going to kill them. I'm like, wait a minute. But they say that they're working on developing a super yeast strain for industrial production of xylitol. They're making all of these things and nothing can be trusted. Everything you gotta, and that you don't know whether or not, it's not just going to be your chocolate bars going to say, now reduced sugar, because I've even got some of these articles I have sitting next to me. They're like, oh, you don't even have to label it that way. Some companies might not want to sell it as reduced.
Yeah, they won't put on the label metabolically engineered organisms.
No
on your Snickers bar, right?
It's those like, just made your food. Those aren't in there, not in any perceptible amount anyway. So it's,
and that's the disingenuous thing. Like I showed this way back when I used to do videos on Monsanto and all the corporations that were using Monsanto in their products, and they would put 12 nutrients, they put these pyramids and stuff, right? Like talking about, and so like the average person, not the sharpest blade in the rack sort of thing, obviously. I mean, most people are not thinking about this. I understand to a certain extent, a lot of people just don't have time, and they just place their trust in well, I mean, obviously, if our governments are allowing these products to be sold on our shelves, they must be
safe.
Right? They must be safe.
Generally recognized as safe.
Yeah, exactly. But no, and in fact, aspartame, you know this, right?
Synthetic biology.
Yeah, we showed that aspartame now that in Europe they had so the European sort of body, and again this is a breakdown. When you have the New World Order being formed, and you have Europe being a European Union, and the European Union has its own food council that decides what foods can be and can't be sold. Again, global sort of forces coming in, but they found that the European Food Council that approved aspartame had disregarded something like 78 studies that showed that aspartame causes cancer and has detrimentous sort of effects on humans, and they didn't just, I mean, they just completely ignored them. And they only looked at the studies that were done by Monsanto themselves to approve the drug. So this has all been revealed. I mean, I did a couple of videos on it, I think last year. I don't know how long ago, 6-8 months ago, sort of thing. But this is another example of how these products, and aspartame is in, like, like you it's like when you go to, like, you think about it, you're at your you know what it's like. You can go to the grocery store, you're at the checkout. What do you got? You got all the gums.
Oh yeah.
Like, how comes all the gums, none of them have sugar anymore?
Because sugar's bad for you, Jeff.
Yeah, well,
yeah. I mean, so seriously, then but all these other things.
You knew that the gum was bad for you, right? Yeah. You didn't chew it because it was. I mean, you chewed gum usually because you're a kid, right? Or you wanted your breath. You wanted something for your breath because you're in a dinner or meeting or something like that, right? So those are the reasons why ostensibly you take something like Chlorette, something horrible like that. I never chew gums, and I know that chewing gums stimulates your acids in your stomach because it's expecting food, and so I think gums are bad for you. But I think from like a kid's point of view, you would more readily accept that it has the sugar cane in it, right, than it has aspartame and xylitol, sorbitol, and whatever else they're coming up with, these synthetic sugars, right, that are highly toxic. And that they're using, of course, in the soft drink industry when it comes to the diet sodas. I mean, the diet sodas, they say they actually gain weight. You probably gain more weight drinking diet sodas than you do drinking the regular sodas. So it's all a big lie, basically.
And here we are. Now we know aspartame and high fructose corn syrup, these things, and sugar, these things are bad for us. And now they are turning everything into this sort of product. They're making those with synthetic biology, creating the enzymes to do the process for the high fructose corn syrup. And they're going to do that with all of these foods that they're switching over. It's crazy. The biggest food manufacturers in the world, they're all in this. And
Yeah.
more than ever, everybody, if you're listening, abandon it and then tell your friends why you have to, and tell your family, at Thanksgiving when they bust out like the pecan pie or something, which is going to have corn syrup in it probably, but just tell people why,
You gotta
I'm not going to
ruin-
have any pie.
Yeah, that's the last time we invite Camille over.
Oh, I know. I'm so annoying everywhere I go, but I'm not I'm
No,
actually
I
we're
think
having a dinner on Saturday where everything is being prepared to my standards, and other people are having to prepare. Like, I got the ingredients and everything, and it wasn't my call. I actually felt bad because I'm pushing this on other people, but it'll be a good experience. We can all
yeah.
talk about why
Yeah,
the
yeah.
bird why the bird looks
I
this
think that's a
way.
wonderful. I think that's a wonderful thing to do. In fact, that's a way of doing it. Saying, hey, you know what? Okay, how about we have a healthy food night, and we'll get all the best sort of raw ingredients that we can get, organic and the like, and no synthetic, nothing, none of these lab things, lab meats or anything else, and we'll show you that this is actually tastes really good. And you know what? It's totally doable. And then you set the example. And then maybe if people start to adopt this on a daily basis, they'll notice right away. Look, I know the difference between being healthy and unhealthy because I've had periods where I've allowed myself, or usually it's just a short period, but it could be like when I was in university, for instance, all of a sudden, you're pulling all nighters, you're going to the pubs, you're partying, and then you're eating the junk food, you're going to the fast food, you're going to the Chinese restaurants, getting the MSGs, stuff like that. And because you're younger, you can kind of get away with it more. But like, that if you do that for any stretch of period, you're going to have terrible effects. So I've never allowed myself more than for a period of weeks to get unhealthy, but I know how quickly that your body can change and these things can take hold. I mean, it can happen, like it can happen in a week. You could put on 5 or 10 pounds in a week if you just let yourself go.
Oh,
And,
sure.
if you start drinking a soft drink every day, you're adding like, 18 grams of sugar or something to your daily diet, right? Of raw added sugar, which, and then what kind of sugar is it? If it's high fructose corn sugar, it's extremely toxic. It's terrible for your liver, right? And people there still is that movie on YouTube, which I think everyone should watch, really. It's called Sugar, the Bitter Truth.
I don't think I've watched that.
Yeah, yeah, you should watch it. I mean, it's a well-known sort of a guy out of the university. I don't know which, somewhere in California.
No.
But he does a whole breakdown on sugar, and he talks about high fructose corn sugar and how your liver processes it. And he says like that calorie is not a calorie, and that these high fructose corn sugar calories are extremely toxic, and your liver can't deal with them properly. And it's like, it shows the whole effect, and this is his field, right? So it's a very well, I think it's it's an important video for people to watch. It's just one element, though. Like I mentioned before, I talked about the food film there from Australia, which is called That Sugar Film. You can get that on YouTube, by the way. So if you're listening to this right now, you can look it up, That Sugar Film. And again, these things, we might take them as common sense, people that are more in the know about what's going on, but the average person has no clue about this stuff. So these might be ways of getting them to wake up, because I know with you, Camille, you've said this before, it's actually food that woke you up, right? It's like food that you realized at some point in your life that the foods that you were consuming were having an effect on you, and that's where you came to an awakening that, my word, I have to change, sort of thing.
It's definitely been part of the process.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. It's all being labeled in such deceptive ways too, that I think it would be hard for people to know that everything's basically aspartame and high fructose corn syrup anymore, or is headed that way because of the ways that the legal verbiage, what they're allowed to say, like the stevia. People are like, oh, I use stevia. Well, a whole lot of that comes from modified tiny life, spewing out the bits and pieces that they want. And that people, if it's labeled as a fruit sugar, like that might sound great and people will go for it, but it's all going to just wreck your body, just like the things we know are bad for you. We already know that they're bad for you, but it's sneaky, and all their brand names and everything that things could be labeled, and how they're stripping sugars from dairy before they turn it into the yogurts or the chocolate milk and everything. Like they're tampering with everything so much. People might not know, and it's hard if you're eating things that, and I know, and not everything that I eat is free from packaging. That's for sure, but
that's hard.
Hardly anything that I do comes from packaging, but
yeah.
What does, even that, I'm always like, wait a minute, this is creepy. I didn't have my hands on it from the beginning. And yeah.
I mean, again, too, I think the real key for everyone out there that's listening to this, and all the people that hopefully will at some point or time wake up to this, is to train your body to get off the addiction to sweets.
Yes.
Because look, I mean, there's ways to get sweets. Like like people have asked me this before, and I said, like, okay, how about this, right? Like, don't, like, okay, orange juice, for instance. Don't drink orange. I mean, like, I'm not saying, like, eat it, like, instead of drinking orange juice, eat an orange, right?
And it is citrus season. It just started.
There you go, right?
Yep.
So eat an orange. Instead of having a glass of orange juice, have a glass of water. Instead of the juice, have an orange instead of the orange. Now, a typical glass of orange juice has, like, what, 7 or 8 oranges in it, right? So, and it's all the sugar. It's nothing. All the nutrients have been extracted, more or less, and you're just getting the sugar from the orange juice. So it's not really healthy for you. It's actually bad for you. Yes. And they're also pasteurized and all that as well. So, they make it seem like Orangina, like you're just sticking a straw into an orange sort of thing. But even just sticking a straw in an orange, you want that pulp, you want that fiber that's in there, because that's what your body's expecting. If you deprive your body of that and you just take in the sugars, then it's all going through your liver basically, and your liver has to work overtime. So, I mean, like, just that, like, that's an example. Okay, another example, I say, like, I'm a huge date guy. I talk about dates all the time. That's my energy food. Like, replace cookies with dates, right? They're even more sweet than cookies, but they're full of nutrients, full of vitamins and everything else. I mean, they're extremely healthy for the most part. I know you said something before about them having an effect on
ovulation, but that's probably in quantity,
Yeah, the quantity sort of thing. But
cut them in half and put peanut butter on them. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, like, dates are fantastic, and you could survive off them, sort of thing. And this is the difference between, and that's why when I say whole foods, I'm not talking about the product or the corporation. I'm talking about eating like a whole pear, a whole apple, a whole date instead, and changing that so that you move towards a diet where you don't obsess over sweetness. And what I obsess over is energy level. Like, for me, that's what's important, is having energy level. Like, and so, like, I have my ice cream every day, or maybe I don't have ice cream every day, but I'll have some sweets every day, sort of thing. But that's all part of my balance of having my energy. So when I take my sweets, I usually go out and exercise after, sort of thing. And the sweets, a lot, if I'm having those sweets, then they are contributing to giving me the energy for the exercise I'm going to be doing. So, like, having that balance so that you feel as a human being that every day you're optimal. You're not like, why am I lacking so much energy? And again, people, then they go to vitamins and stuff like that. I don't believe in vitamins. I mean, I believe you eat healthy foods and you keep yourself balanced, then you don't need, because, like, why are you taking synthetic vitamins? I used to know this guy that used to take like 40 vitamins with every meal. I thought he was mentally ill. What are you doing? Like, what caveman do you think do that? And people say, well, what's the best diet to eat? I honestly believe the caveman diet is the optimal diet, because you think of what a caveman would have been eating. And again, with a caveman, he probably eat, once every few days, sort of thing, or maybe certain times of the year, gorge himself, sort of thing. But that's why fasting is a healthy thing to do as well. So I've done a lot of restricted time fasting eating, where you're eating, you eat between a certain time. And then, so like for me, I haven't been doing it lately, but I still do it to a certain extent. But like I won't eat between, say, 9 p.m. and 12 p.m. the next day. So that's, 15 hours or whatever of your body being able to process, all your stomach being able to go through, and then, like, yeah, and the rest of the time you just drink water. You don't take anything else. I heard black coffee is acceptable too. It doesn't apparently do that. But these are just examples. And then you think about yourself as a functioning human being, and you think, what do I need to be at my optimal on a daily basis? It's not about depriving yourself. I don't believe this, because I believe when in Rome, right? So you go to a party, that's when you have, you eat the snacks. Like, I don't worry. Say if I take one day out of the week where I don't care about what I eat, I don't worry about it, because the rest of the week I've been taking care of myself. So it's not gonna, like, if I decide to loaf and eat some junk food or something like that, I have the ability to go through that and not have minimal effects, sort of thing. So I think you don't have to deprive yourself of food if you keep yourself balanced and you exercise, and you again, with the sugar addiction, that's an addiction. That's not normal. It's not normal to, like, get up in the morning, have a glass of orange juice, lunch, have a Coca-Cola, and just saying the sugar in the beverages alone, right? I'm not talking about all the sugar that might be in the little cakes and everything else you might be taking, right? It's not normal to have that amount of extra sugar in your diet, and you don't need it. Once you eliminate it, you're going to feel a lot better. You're going to feel a lot better because you won't have those, those insulin rushes, the sugar rush that you get, right? And this is a chemical reaction in your body. So you have to realize that when you take these sugars in, your body is, going crazy, sort of thing, because it's having to deal with it. And this is where, yeah, it's a lot more complicated. You need people that are to really explain this whole process.
There's a lot of people I've seen online that have, like, how to step off sugar. There's all kinds of, like, plans. Like, some people have done it as a big group sort of thing. There's this lady.
Yeah. And I think what you said before with the fasting, that's a good start.
Yeah, but you could break out in cold sweats and just be sick as a dog.
Maybe take a half day fast as a start, and then work it from there.
Or, like, cut one thing or a couple things out of your diet over a week or two or so, and then go into maybe do a water fast. Like, taper yourself off. I don't want anybody to die because they stop taking their drugs, but you got to stop taking your drugs.
Yeah. And again, just supplementing, because you know what? It's better. You're going to find, like, eat an avocado, right? Instead of a Big Mac. You get way more energy. It's going to keep you going much further. You're going to find, like, eat a small bowl of dates instead of a bowl of cookies, right? And then you're going to find you're going to have way more energy. You're not going to be hungry after you eat those dates, sort of thing. You're going to feel full, and you're going to have that sweetness, and you're going to enjoy the sweetness, and the sweetness is totally natural, sort of thing. So it's a totally different feeling in your body. And again, like, I don't have a perfect diet. I'm not living the perfect life, but I try to keep the balance. I know that's so important, because, for sleep and all these things, the more you put these synthetic chemicals into your body, the more sugars you put in, the more it's going to mess up your endocrine system, the more it's going to mess up your whole circadian rhythm. And this is what, and we got to realize, we got to be conscious of how much sugar is in the basic products. So you think, like, a lot of people don't think, well, I'm going to have pasta, there's no sugar. Well, there's tons of sugar in pasta. I mean, it's almost all sugar, like the pasta sauce, the noodles themselves. I mean, they're carbohydrates to the core, sort of thing. Not that you shouldn't have the pasta, but you also have to think, well, what's in the sauce? What am I, maybe then you think, okay, I'm going to try to make my own sauce, and I'm going to try to eliminate as much sugar as possible in the process. I'm going to use lots of vegetables and stuff like that, and make a big sauce up sort of thing. You could freeze extra and stuff like that. That's how I do it, sort of thing. And then you have like maybe instead of having 3 or 4 pasta meals a week, you have 1 or 2 sort of thing. And then you just keep yourself balanced, and you pay attention to your energy levels. You pay attention to that balance in your body. Listen to your body. Listen to how your body is feeling. I mean, if you wake up one day or you're having a day where you just run out of energy, it's like, well, what did I eat? What did I have? What have I had the last couple of days? That might explain that. And these are just ways of, that's my common sense sort of approach to how I, keep my diet sort of thing. I don't obsess over it, but then again,
but at the same time, like maybe for me, knowledge is power, although a little bit, it's pretty dangerous, right? But if you learn about your body systems, like I'll put a link. You don't have to put it on the screen or anything if you don't want to. But that's my herbalist. He's pretty cool. But he has all these different modules. You can take the whole thing, but he does little module stuff of on your digestive system, like the one I just linked you to, is about how your liver and your gallbladder are functioning and what happens when you eat this. And then if you're aware of what an impact, there's all kinds of modules of his on there. But if you are aware of the impact that these things have, maybe that would help your brain go, okay, we're going to try and step away, because it's important. I mean, you don't want to die of cancer. You don't want to die of cancer. And who wants to be dependent on the healthcare system? Who wants to be stuck on the pharmaceuticals their whole life?
Who wants to have chemo?
Yeah, definitely. Right. Or their child to have chemo.
Yeah.
It's
serious stuff.
Control, because it's not easy because it's everywhere, yes. And it's in all the foods and all the drinks that are coming out of these big companies, and it's getting worse. It's only going to get worse. So the sooner the better, I'd say.
A boycott as many of these corporations. Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, these corporations are evil. They're evil.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
They spend millions, if not billions. They spend hundreds of millions a year just trying to prevent legislation, trying to prevent genetically modified foods from being labeled and stuff like that, because they don't want the people to wake up to what they're doing. Yeah. And just like you showed before, when we see this, the FDA's decision to exclude all, you lose. I mean, you cannot make this up. There's no way that somebody made this up and just out of happen chance or something, right? I mean, this is clearly them telling us that this is for the sheeple, this is for them, and that's the whole thing. They talk about healthcare and all this. An ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. If we had that philosophy as a society, there would be where would McDonald's be? Nobody would be going to it. Nobody would be supporting it. Instead of having a McDonald's in every street corner. Now, again, I'll tell you, you drive from Montreal to Toronto, which is the main corridor in Canada, Rainbow Unicorn Land, right? The two big cities, right? And there's like a 5-hour drive between the two big cities. Any Tom, Dick, and Harry town you stop at, it's the saddest thing you'll ever see. It's so sad. It's always the same thing. Pull off at any exit, and you'll see the same cast of characters. You'll see McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Subway, Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? And it's a cancer on society. These things, they provide jobs. What type of jobs, right? What, people are getting paid peanuts, right, to schlop around horrible foods and toxic environments with synthetic lighting and everything. I mean, these places are cancers.
On the healthcare industry side of things, I have to mention, I think it was the Milken Institute that I saw a talk recently where they were talking about how they're doing a new experiment with the Medicare system, and that they're talking about taking a third of the Medicare people and switching the way that instead of the doctor says you need this test and they bill for all the things, instead they're talking about giving the doctors X amount of money to take care of that patient and keep them healthy through the year. And that one of the options that they could do, and they're including like gym memberships or make them wear a fitness tracker sort of thing, but another thing was the meal kits, where you're not going to be picking which chicken you want for your dinner, it's going to come in the mail, like the Blue Apron, and there's
Oh
so
yeah,
many of
yeah,
those.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know I've also heard where the food stamps, that they wanted to move food stamps over to something like that, where it's like you
Mhm.
get what's in your household and how much you should have, the nutritional level that you should have. And if they are making things with the synthetic biology and they're just the molecules, they don't have to tell you where those molecules came from, these meal kits, that's going to be crazy.
They're
And
pushing that big
yeah,
time.
yeah,
The big
it's big.
popular YouTuber Shane Dawson, the actor that plays his boyfriend Ryan Dawson, they
Ugh.
do these skits. Jeffree Star, Rosanna Pansino, all these top YouTube employees, shills basically, will do these things where they order these meals, right? And it's like Blue Apron, like you say. And it's like, then again, I mean, you're not even, it's not, you're not even, I mean, it's like putting ultimate, as many middlemen in between
Oh
where your
yeah.
food is coming from. Like you're completely losing, you're actually putting all your trust. It's one thing to go to the supermarket and choose your head of lettuce or something like that, right? I mean, even then, how close are you? How many middlemen are in between that lettuce and
Yep.
where it was actually grown and, all that. But the reality is that, the average person now is being convinced that, give me convenience or give me death, as the dead Kennedys
Yeah,
put
and
it,
you're going
sort
to
of
be
thing.
able to cook for yourself with these things. Oh, a home cooked meal, and it'll eliminate
Yeah.
some of that time, but
Yeah.
this is the thing we should go towards,
I
because
should put that in
yeah,
for a second just to show people how they are doing this. It's called Blue Apron, right? That's a
that's
good
one of them,
example.
but there's so many. Yeah.
So this is the con job with this stuff is they make it seem like it's like a faux cuisine where it's you follow the instructions. It all comes in a kit. It's all pretty much done for you. You just kind of put it together. You open the kit, add the sauce, whatever, maybe turn on the grill. And this is the new type of food that they're programming people into. And
It helps
again,
with the program of the food waste too, because you're only going to get exactly how much you need. You're not going to get that whole like bunch of carrots from
yeah,
California. You're going to get 2 carrots or however many are supposed to be there for that recipe.
you're
Yeah.
a Jenna 21 meal,
Yep.
basically. This is the
Absolutely.
future too. This is where they're taking it, where it'll all be rations, right? Like you have
Hmm.
a United World Food Council. They showed
I
this
know
in
you're
their
still hungry, but you only need X amount of calories
yeah.
today. Yeah.
And again, what they can do and what they will do and what they probably already are doing is saying, using the guise of, oh, look at this obesity epidemic, we have to do something. New York's a good example too, where that creature from the deep pits of hell, Michael Bloomberg, came in and put limits on the sizes of soft drinks, and it was ostensibly
Yep.
to help with the obesity epidemic. But really, I mean, why are you putting limits on soft drinks? Why don't you just educate? Why don't you just show people what are in these things so they stop? And like Canada here, when I was a kid, they used to have something called participation on TV, where they would put these little 5-minute sort of things in between shows where they have like a young fit couple that would be exercising and eating well, and it was one of the first things they slashed. They got rid of that. And it's like, so you just have the junk food, you have the McDonald's, you have the burger thing, you have all the commercials, all the suggested, all the toy products that are like we showed, the Happy Meals, Shrek, and Harry Potter, Lego, all these things are connected. They're all part of the beast system. The average I read a stat. I don't know if it's true. It boggled my mind to think about it, but they said the average kid sees 30,000 commercials a year. It's
Wow.
like, what? But yeah, I mean, these kids are seeing thousands upon thousands of commercials, and they're being constantly programmed into, you got to eat this, you got to have this, and it's all connecting everything that, they go to see the Marvel movies, the Avengers, and then there's the Avengers Happy Meal, and then if you want the unhappy meal, you go to Burger Thing, right? Because you're suffering from depression because you're eating all the terrible toxic foods, so you're unhappy and you're confused about your sexuality because it's wreaking havoc on your hormonal system. And then you think, well, I'm going to get an unhappy meal, and it's just they are nasty. And then what are they putting in the happy meals and the unhappy meals? They're putting the synthetic lab grown meats, which we've
Impossible
covered.
burgers.
Impossible burgers,
Oh,
right? So it's a full-on assault. They are using the foods to control the herd. This is the reality and it's a big battle because, if we had a healthy population, we would have a critically thinking population, right?
Yeah.
It's hand in glove, like your how your body is functioning, the foods that you're taking in affects everything. So it affects your ability to I mean, like, yeah, I have one of these up here, one of these ones that I have talking about how, and I showed this before with the first image that we were showing, that it actually these junk foods make you stupider. Like
Sure.
corn sugar makes you stupider. Like it literally does. It makes you dumber. It affects your memory. It affects your cognitive abilities.
New
So
and improve, all you lose will be so much better, no doubt.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. So it's like you're not just harming your body, you're harming your brain.
yep.
So, having a non-critically thinking population is key for their control system, because then you convince everybody, and you can put these elaborate specials and have these characters on CNN talk about, we have an obesity epidemic. This is why we need the government to come in and take control of the food and distribute the food properly to make sure that all the people get the proper levels of nutrition. They're setting the table for this, folks. They're setting the table. The Blue Apron's a great example of where it's coming. Like, this is where they're going to take us here, where you're going to have your meals, you're either going to go to your food council or the drone will show up at your door, and this is your meal for today. This is what you're allotted. You get three mini carrots, right?
And this could totally be done on a local level too, when they shift everything over to the locally produced vertical farms and
Yes.
fermentation tanks. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing about the control of the opposition when it comes to the vegan movement and vegetarianism and all this. Is like, these movements are not as organic. A lot of people in them are maybe oblivious to the United Nations and the Agenda 2030, Agenda 21, and this whole global takeover of everything. They are just there because they've been programmed. And some of these movies can be useful, right? Some of these films, like I mentioned before, even stuff like Super Size Me and the food movie and stuff like that, can be beneficial. But some of these movies are actually designed, even though they're giving you truths. I don't know the one I'm thinking of, dealing with the pig farms and the chicken farms and all that, right? That has turned so many people into vegetarians and vegans, right? Well, that's what the New World Order wants.
Yep.
Because then you're right for the Impossible Burgers and all these things, right? And so, and again, not to take. I'm not here to take swipes at people that I totally understand the concern for the well-being of animals and stuff like that, and I totally agree with that. I think all animals that we process for food should be treated as humanely as possible, but that also comes back full circle to the whole know your farmer, know where your food is coming from.
The link, I just put it there for you, and I know we've mentioned it before, but eat wild. Yeah, go meet the person that's producing your food. Go see the way that your food is produced to make sure it's not those horrible people that, if we want to call them farmers, that are raising animals in terrible ways. Take control of your life and your food.
And ask as many questions.
Yeah, and tell them that everything is terrible. Tell them, I mean, that I don't even know how to turn back the clock on, like, what Monsanto is doing and these seed treatments that they're doing, the tiny life, the scrambling up the life on the roots of plants. How do we go back from this? Because these things have been planted. They're everywhere. They're treating the soil, and they're putting this synthetic life everywhere. And
yeah.
I mean, I think it's just like, okay, we know it's bad, so we got to stop. And then we can deal with it from there. But the first step is stopping. And while you can't do it, it's probably too late to make your whole, like, people in the US, your whole Thanksgiving up to, like, quality stuff that's not coming from California. Yeah, seriously. Those guys, I mean, we can't trust them anymore. Do what you can, but start now. It is hard. definitely to change, especially if you have a family, but it's so worth it. I tell you, I never when I go places, I don't eat the snacks. I'm that weird person. I'll go to a baby shower, and oh, what do you mean you don't want the food, but then opens up the conversation why I'm not eating that stuff, and gives you the opportunity to
Plant some
let
seeds.
people, yeah, because
You know,
it's crazy.
I always love, one of my favorite stories dealing with food is Bolivia and McDonald's. It's a wonderful story. And this says a lot about the New World Order, because we mentioned it before. You mentioned the women going off to work in the glass towers, right? The
Mm-hmm.
feminism, right? That's being programmed. This is all a perfect storm because, look, this is the thing about Bolivia is that food is a huge part of their culture. It's like the main thing, right? They pride themselves, and so the women in the families spend all day making meals. I mean, this is what they do. I mean, they have all the other duties to do in the household, raise the kids, right? Do all the laundry, take care of the household, plant whatever, take care of the garden, stuff like that. But the women preparing the foods all day, the Bolivians are used to having this organic, highly sort of, very cultural sort of thing where it's like, this is the way that we're supposed to be. Food is a huge part. I mean, it's a huge, huge part. None of us are here for a day I mean, we're gone in a matter of weeks if we don't have food, sort of thing. So food is as essential. As I said, I mean, what's more important than food? Nothing really. I mean, water and air, yeah. I mean, you can't survive without either, all three, sort of thing, right? But really, it's as important as anything. So in Bolivia, they tried to open up, McDonald's spent over $1 billion. They opened up 10 McDonald's in Bolivia. This is way back in the 90s, I believe. And because of the Bolivian sort of whole belief and the whole culture around food, all the McDonald's failed and McDonald's pulled out. It's the only country that really in the world where McDonald's hasn't succeeded in. And it's a beautiful story because it says so much about how evil and cancerous these things are. Like you have to realize these things are a cancer on civilization. This is the way to look at them and say, you know what? If there was only a little bit here and there, wouldn't be a big deal, right? It's like going to a greasy spoon, right? I mean, you go to a greasy spoon, you go to a diner to get a burger and a fry. It's not good for you, but whatever. It's once in a while. It's a late night. You're seeing your friends, whatever, coming back from a wedding. Those are the times to have that type of junk food. But to drive down the street and to constantly, all you've got, you got the billboards, you got the big lights, the golden arches, the burgers, you got the same cast of characters on every major street, every little Tom, Dick, and Harry town. This is destroyed our whole food culture. Where like even the mom and pop restaurants, the just families making food, mothers being at home, spending half the day making a meal for dinner.
Yep.
Right, which is a huge part of family life and happiness and and fulfillment, right? I mean, it's not trivial to be a good chef. That's a wonderful thing. I mean, that's a high skill. So if you've like you're a homemaker, a mother, that's raising kids, and you're making these meals and you're getting better as you're doing it, and you're learning, you're experimenting, and all that. That's a huge part of keeping that family balance and keeping happiness, and and this is what they're eradicating. This is what they're destroying. They want us all to move over the microwave type meals, the Stofers and all that crap that has been starting with the TV dinners and then the microwave Michelinas and all that crap that's in the and this is the type of stuff, and it says 12 nutrients or whatever, and the phony labeling and all that. This is the worst part of our foods. I mean, this is the stuff that we should be avoiding, like the bubonic plague. We should be avoiding all their foods. We should be doing, like, everybody should be adamant about this and coming together and saying, we got to punish these hideous corporations that have been killing millions and millions of people. When it comes to McDonald's, Burger Thing, and all the fast food corporations, they are killing millions of people. What's the difference between the cigarette You can't tell me that the cigarette corporations weren't killing people.
No.
That's not, you cannot win that argument because it's baloney. Now, yeah, we all have known for the past few decades that cigarettes absolutely do cause cancer and they're terrible, but the cigarette corporations were doing everything they could to make people addicted to their products so that, they could sell more cigarettes. The fast food industry has been doing the exact same thing, targeting your children.
On the how long it takes to prepare food from scratch sometimes. I mean, if people can consider
Hours.
that, yeah, it does. It takes hours. And like spaghetti is not a fast meal when you're making the
No.
pasta and you're making the sauce, where it could be a fast meal if it's just coming out of packaging. But while you're taking your time, that you can't be in your glass tower while you're taking your time and you're cooking that, and it's probably going to cost more because if you're going to your local farm, they're not going to get the government subsidies to offer you that 29 cent a pound turkey
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly.
They're not going to have that, but you're gonna, in the end, I mean, not only will you feel better, but you're gonna probably save money on your health care, like really your health. I mean, health insurance is a scam, but you're going to save money hopefully on needing things. Probably the dentist, you'd save money if you're eating real foods as opposed to this
Well,
stuff.
you think
But
about it too that in many ways, like, why have we become so dependent on having this huge medical industry?
oh yeah.
Where did it all come from? Right? It's like the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, it didn't exist a couple hundred years ago. Right? I
Yeah.
mean, they didn't. I mean, yes, okay, people didn't live as long, and we had the Industrial Revolution. Really, the major reasons why people live longer. I mean, there's one major reason why people live basically twice as long. Do you know what that is? Do you take a guess at it?
So that we're not invading each other all the time
No,
and
it's yeah,
no
that's a good example, but
killing each
it's
other off.
really refrigeration.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because many people would die in the past because of spoiled meats and just that changed the game in many ways. That refrigeration allowed us to preserve food longer. So
And you
um,
could say it might have allowed for the unnatural diet to kind of spread, because maybe
of
back
course,
before
of
refrigeration,
course,
you killed an animal to have it frozen, you cut hunks off through the
it's
year, but
again
we can
though.
have lettuce in January
Yeah,
now.
again,
Yeah.
it's a double-edged sword, right? It can be used for good and bad,
Yeah.
and so the that's the major reason why people live longer. It's not because of vaccines. It's not because even modern healthcare, which is the Rockefeller type medicine, which James Corbett's covered, where the philosophy is basically just get people on pills and keep them on pills for life, sort of thing. The whole dependency in this massive pharmaceutical industry, and just the hospitals, for example, too. I mean, yes, all so many good people, so many good nurses and doctors and people that work in these places that are there for the right reasons and are doing tremendous work. But we have developed this society where we have allowed these corporations to poison our bodies for decades and decades and decades, and then they say, well, here you go, here's you go to the doctor, get your and again, in the United States it's a totally different situation where people, you have to be insured, or you're going to be footing the bill. So many people bypass that, but really in the past you have to look at, you say, you know what, give examples of cavemen, or you can give the examples of people like Dick Pronicki who live in the wilderness, for decades on end. They don't have a hospital down the street. They don't have a clinic or anything, right? I mean, like we are indoctrinated into that belief. We get a sniffle, we got to go to the clinic, sort of thing. The reality is that if we keep ourselves healthy and we maintain a balance and we eat well, the chances are that we're going to get sick and that we're going to need care is far slimmer. So you'd want to keep those things for those purposes, for when you really get sick and you really need that. But really the reality is that we are living so unhealthy. Like, our lives are, I'm not saying me and you, Camille, or the people in the audience. I'm just saying, by and large, the average sort of American is not in good health, is suffering from so many different things, and they're normalizing all these things. Just like we talked about normalizing obesity, fat shaming laws and stuff like that. Normalizing the XXXXX plus sizes of clothing, right? And saying, well, we have to change this because women and men that are going shopping are getting their feelings hurt by going in these huge plus aisles and stuff like that. When the reality is, why do we have any of these people? Right?
Yeah.
If we had a critically thinking population that was well educated, properly educated, not programmed, but educated, and understood the importance of a balanced sort of diet, then we wouldn't have this, and we wouldn't have to spend gazillions, billions, and trillions of dollars, for healthcare. And then be beholden to the pharmaceutical industry and
Yeah, you don't know how to fix yourself if you've got,
yeah.
and people will wait until they can get into the doctor and they'll take whatever prescription is given to them, and everything that we need is already here. I know people are people disagree with me on some of things of herbal medicine, but that we don't know what those will do to everybody's individual system. We're all going to handle things differently. Sure,
Yeah.
we are. But, don't just take a pill. Don't just take a pill. You could learn how to help yourself. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of good people that get into medicine and education and things like that are actually harming us because the propaganda and everything pushes people to, those are the good things you can do. Be a teacher, help imprison children.
Be the change you want to see,
Yeah. Well, if people don't know, but they're waking up. Is that what we want to call? People use that so much. But yeah, no. Start with your food. You can change everything with yourself. Definitely. That's the only thing you can change. Change you. Do better.
Change you, and then yeah, as I said, be the change you want to see. Set the example.
Yeah.
And then talk to people. Don't be afraid. I love hearing your stories. Handing out your business cards and all that. Like, you're proactive in your community. You might be a thorn in some people's side.
Oh yeah.
Here she comes again.
Oh no, not
but
her
it's
again.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome because a lot of people, they don't want to be woken up. They don't, like, they'd rather just
be comfortable. Yeah.
And die, not think about death, but when they get it, they've already. And again, I say that again, always my beliefs about raising awareness. It's not to diminish anybody that partakes in trying to solve cancer, but I think a lot of the raising awareness is just to predictively program us to accept it when it comes, instead of proactively doing everything we can to try to prevent it by educating people properly. I mean, if we educated kids, there would be no kid. If we were really educating kids, there would be no child obesity, or at least if schools were actually keeping an eye on kids' health and saying, whoa, look at this, this kid is 20, 30 pounds overweight, we have to do something about this. Again, I believe in homeschooling, and I believe you eliminate the middleman as much as possible. But the reason why we have so many obese kids these days, because we have so many parents that aren't parenting or are ill-equipped to do parenting to begin with in the first place, right? And it's all the corporatocracy has taken over the whole education system. I mean, we talk about field trips now. I mean, I love the way that the Freakonomics people, usually with the small hats, talk about how awesome these things are, but like, kids are going, these schools now are going to the corporations you used to go to the museum, right?
Yeah.
You go to the botanical gardens or something like that. Now you go to Walmart, you go to McDonald's. This is how we process the burgers and stuff, and it's like it's sold to the kids like, oh wow, this is a cool part of society, when you know what, no, it's actually just indoctrinating you into that new world order sort of way of life that they want everyone to embrace. So it's an ongoing, everyday sort of assault that we're dealing with, and we don't have the money, anywhere near the money or resources to compete with these corporations and the propaganda that they use. So we have to use our wits, and we have to take it on a local level.
If you're going to eat something or drink something that comes out of a package, at least look into it. Don't just go at the ingredients list. Find out anything you can about that, and maybe you don't want to eat it after you do that, because everything's a science experiment.
Yeah, and again, just try your best to get yourself off. Like, the more processed, the more ingredients that are on a food, automatically it's not good for you, right? Like, you look at a bag of chips, for instance. I mean, how many of those chemicals can you even pronounce?
And don't beat yourself up. Baby steps. Take it away a little bit at a time. And everybody, I don't doubt that you can. I've done it, people.
There you go. Yeah, baby steps. It's like, say you're not exercising, go out for a walk.
Yeah.
Take your meal and go out for a walk.
Yeah.
Just take that every day, and then go a little bit further.
And make time for yourself, because you are worth it. You are, absolutely. And if you gotta take the time to cook, maybe you can put, if you like watching shows or something, put your entertainment where you're going to be doing your work. Maybe if you have things that multitask.
Yeah,
it's a good time to multitask.
So are you got to go now? It's like
yeah, but I promise I won't take so long between if we do this again.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. But thank you so much, Camille. Your link is in, so everybody that's listening to this, of course, you can leave a comment in the chat.
I'll do that.
And anybody else that's listening to this later, go and sub Camille. Go check her out. She's doing amazing work. And put her channel right there at the top of the description. Really appreciate doing these shows. Love these shows because I think, yeah, we are what we eat. And if we don't talk about this, it's arguably the most important thing, really. I mean, it's there. You can't really find more important things out there than what you're taking into your body. So it's super important that we talk about these things, and that hey, everyone here, it's you can start the conversation, at the dinner table, even maybe at Christmas or is it Thanksgiving for United States?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe just plant some
seeds. Yep.
seeds. Just open some windows, maybe, just try a little bit. Don't try and shovel it down people's throats, but just try maybe to bring up the conversation, and if we do our best and we reach people in any way, shape, or form we can, whether through social media or whether through just local sort of events and dinners and stuff like that, it's a start, to fight against this. And, this is the ultimate fight because really it is a corporatocracy. I mean, you can call it all the different things you want to call it that run this planet, but in many ways it's these major corporations that are, really running the show, and they are all on board with what they're doing. I mean, this is a total assault. That's why I showed the nerdy nummies and the rainbow unicorn and all the programming that goes into it. It's not just horrible foods that are causing cancers. It's also the attack on the reproductive systems of children that they're targeting. So the food, they want to take control of our food. They really, I mean, Soylent Green is real. You can show that to people. You can actually say that. Like you still have to either read the book or see the movie.
I do. I know. Isn't the book about population control?
Yeah, of course. Of course. It's about Agenda 21.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those New York Times bestsellers that the book is published and within 6 months the movie's already being made, sort of thing. That's how these books work.
What a coincidence.
Yeah, and again, the book, the movie takes place in it's set around contemporary times. I think it's 2020 when it's set, but it was filmed in the 1970s. It's Charles Heston. Now, it's not a great movie or anything, but the theme is this: the oceans are dying. It's the future. New York has 40 million people or something stupid, like 70 million people or something like that, and everybody's eating synthetic food, which is called Soylent Green. That's the only thing that's available for the masses. Well, they actually have Soylent Green. They have Soylent beverage, which is highly toxic and very controversial. Comes out of a place in, that's off the coast of the Mediterranean. I'm not sure if you ever heard of it, but and they actually have a green one. I mean, these people are so diabolical. So when we showed that, just one last time, I'll show you this, which you can't make this up. All you lose.
Wah, wah.
There's no accident there. Nobody could have put that up, and it's clear that we are being targeted. So people need to understand this. Anyways, that being said, much love to everybody. Thank you so much for taking part in the show today, and stay tuned. We will be back for sure.
Thank you.
All right.